In case you somehow didn't know, I really like Next.js. It has made it way easier for me to build both front-end and back-end applications. I've gotten a bit of pushback for my take that Next is a back-end framework, but it, by definition, is. It runs on servers and it returns payloads to users on request. It also has some awesome things built in to make it easier to build a front-end with that server, but Next is a server framework. It's built to run on servers as a back-end type thing. As such, we've been using Next for a bunch of things that are back-end, not just ones that are used on front-end. I wanted to show off a couple of my use cases for Next that are effectively stacking Next apps on top of each other in order to have a good experience for our users. And I want to show off how powerful Next is as a back-end framework. Let's take a look. This is a small project I worked on called Redirect Thing. TLDR, I have too many domains on Vercel, and I want to point some of those domains at other things. Vercel doesn't have a built-in redirection feature. It lets you assign a domain to anything that's deployed on Vercel, but if I want to point it at something else, it doesn't make it very easy. There's a lot of ways I could have spun up my own redirect solution, but honestly, Next proved to be a very, very simple and quick fix for this. All this project does is this middleware file. And right now I'm hard coding some URLs because I'm lazy and it's easy. And in here we can see that when you go to heyi'm.may.pl, or we redirect you to the beta Next docs if you go to Hey I'm Maple, because obviously what Maple wants people to see is the new beta Next site. Duh. And if you go to ask.supplies, it redirects to Ted Cruz's Twitter. I hope that's self-explanatory. But this is actually a very, very quick and easy way to spin up an edge level middleware for redirects. It's fantastic. It's such a quick and dirty method to spin up a server. Like, this is hard to beat. If you're already on Vercel, you're okay with using their infrastructure for stuff. This costs 65 cents per million requests. It's great. Another example of misusing Next is actually in our Uploadthing project. We do have a package that works in Solid Start as well, but most of our focus has been the Next experience because of how easy it is to integrate into your backend with Next. So if you were to look at the Uploadthing code for the server side, we actually have a helper here that creates a builder that you serve from your own endpoint. So if I go to example code quick, here, since this is a route.ts file, this is now effectively a JSON style REST endpoint. And we help you expose an endpoint that's ours. So if you put a file in API/upload thing named route.ts and you export our Next route handler, you're now serving our backend in your application. This makes life so much easier because now everything is handled like cores, all redirects, all authentication and authorization behaviors that you might need in your functions. It all runs on your backend. And that's part of the power of using Next wrong, is that by treating it like a backend framework, you're able to build solutions for other developers that integrate directly with their backend stuff. And if we look at how this actually works, that's where things get, in my opinion, really cool. Because with Uploadthing, we need to generate a pre-signed post URL, and we're generating that on our infrastructure. And the way we do that is pretty simple. So in here, once we've authorized your request and gotten all your metadata and things after you've started the upload, your server will hit our server with a request that we serve on our end very similarly. I can even find the code for that quick. Sorry, Mark. Route. In here, we grab the API key, we split the version, I parse it. If no API key, throw. If the version is too low, throw. API call version, whatever, check it, and then we call our handler. It's pretty simple backend code. Like if you've built a backend that has multiple version handlers in the past, most of this should look pretty familiar to you. We have just a bunch of functions, and then my v4 handler, which parses the input. If it's not the right shape, we return an error. Otherwise, we break it down, we convert it, we upscale it to the format that we need, and we do our work. And then we return all the pre-signed post URLs. Like it's just so easy to work in this way. And what we've now done here is we have a Next app serving an API endpoint. You have a Next app serving our package. Now we've stacked Next apps in a way that is infinitely scalable because these run on serverless infrastructure. And we don't have to worry about these problems anymore. It's just so much easier to go write the function that we need, expose it as an endpoint. When we need the data, just query the URLs I was showing over here. It's such a simple architecture and has allowed us to move hilariously quickly. By treating Next as a traditional backend framework in these ways and not relying fully on what client can do, we've empowered developers to build much, much cooler stuff. And almost all of our infrastructure is served through our API folder folder here, which makes life significantly easier for us to build, maintain, authenticate requests, and all of those types of things. In fact, we're going to be using Uploadthing on the Uploadthing infra repo soon to query against itself. We're just stacking Next app on top of Next app. In fact, this repo was originally a single mono repo with like 4 Next apps in it because we had the docs, which was Next. We had 2 example repos, 1 page, 1 app, both Next. And we had the actual infrastructure on Next. It's such a simple way to spin up an API. I just, like, if I have to spin up a quick JSON endpoint, I'm using Next for it, especially if I want to serve it on Edge, because doing that is as simple as export const runtime equals Edge. Now this is served on Edge. It's great. This is how we've been building things at Ping for a while now. When we have some new need and it doesn't make sense to serve in an application we already have, if we can serve it through a serverless Next API function, we often do. We have a bunch of deployments that don't have a front end at all. It's just calls like this. So don't be scared to treat the tools you use as slightly different from how they're stereotyped, because Next is a great backend framework and it does make my life much easier, even if I'm only sending JSON down from the service. It's a bit different from my usual stuff, but hopefully my way of using Next isn't too cursed. Let me know in the comments how you feel about it. If you want to see more about using Next the right way, I'm sure the video here will tell you a lot more about that. Thank you as always. Peace, nerds.